New at 6. Really hard to deny. Portland has been going through it. The pandemic forcing businesses to close left and right, political and racial unrest, near nightly vandalism, and a city that just doesn't quite look like what we're used to seeing. But if you're watching this from the metro area, that means you're still here. And there are still so many reasons to love Portland. And that's the focus of this week's Willamette Week cover article. Arts and culture editor Matthew Singer joins us now. Thanks so much for being here, Matthew.
Thanks for having me.
Former mayoral candidate Sarah Anarone actually wrote an essay for this issue addressing the national articles that claim that Portland is dying. And she says this might actually be good for the city.
Yeah, well, as you pointed out in the introduction, this is kind of an awkward time for us to put out an issue about why we love Portland. I believe the word that Sarah used to describe the city right now is cranky. But her point ultimately is that many of the things that have Portland so upset right now, homelessness, systemic racism, these are not new issues. They are issues that were perhaps, maybe swept under the rug a bit over the last decade and a half as, the rest of the world discovered Portland and we became this national destination city. And we probably bought into our hype a little bit. So now that these things are getting aired out a little bit more, it might push the city to actually live up to its reputation as a city of bold solutions. And, she compares the relationship between Portland and its people right now as like a married couple that's gone a couple of years without arguing at all. Loudly airing out grievances is probably better than quiet complacency at this point.
Another topic in the issue, the Oregon Historical Society refusing to gloss over the ugly parts of the state's past.
Yeah, so in October, the Oregon Historical Society was vandalized during what was called an Indigenous Peoples Day of Rage. And one of the loudest groups condemning that vandalism were local Indigenous groups, because they know that throughout their history, the OHS has worked to document the state's past, including the ugly parts. One of its exhibits is a KKK hood, which is on display to show that Oregon was a longtime haven for the Ku Klux Klan. So they're not an arm of white supremacy, as this attack would have suggested. And, that stance of showing all the bits of Oregon's history, good, bad, and ugly, it hasn't always pleased people. But as their executive director has said, their job is to tell the truth. They are not the tourism bureau.
And now, despite everything that's happened, Northeast Portland still has an honorary mayor.
So Paul Knowles, who's our cover star, he is, and back in the 1960s, he owned a ton of businesses in the North Williams area, which, that neighborhood that used to be called Albina, which was really the hub of black nightlife in Portland. And his most important place that he owned was a jazz club called the Cotton Club, which was a West Coast analog to the famous jazz bar on the East Coast. And, even though a lot of the black community was gentrified out of that area, and a lot of his businesses were forced to close when the city built the I-5 freeway back in the start of the 70s. He's remained a sort of pivotal member of the black community. He had, up until last year, a barbershop called Geneva's Sheer Perfection on MLK that closed down around the start of the pandemic. But he's just a kind of legendary figure in Portland's black community, and he has earned the nickname the mayor of Northeast Portland. He just turned 90 years old. Wow. And there was a live stream storytelling event that was made public in his honor last month when he turned. And I talked to him, and I've talked to a lot of people that are, kind of the age of 80 and above. And I think he is by far the coolest and most active member of that group that I've ever spoken to. I think up until everything closed down, he was still going out to see live music in this city. A lot of the people that played at his club, 3 times a week. And so he's really kind of hurting right now that he can't actually go out of the house and be as active as he wants to be. But the reason we put him on the cover is because I think he exemplifies what we were trying to do with this issue, was to show you that there's a lot of things that we should be grateful still exist in this town, and he's one of them.
I always look forward to this issue. Matthew Singer, thank you so much. We appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me.
And you can read the entire article in the latest edition of Willamette Week on newsstands now or online at wweek.com. Okay, now